Don't you dare touch me again. I screamed as I slammed the kitchen drawer shut, just as he grabbed my wrist, too tight, too familiar. His breath reeked of whiskey, and I could still smell the smoke from the cigarette he'd stubbed out on the porch. My fingers throbbed where he'd gripped them last night, and this time, I wasn't backing down. You think you can talk to me like that now? He snarled, eyes bloodshot and wide. Just 'cause your mama left you the land? That don't make you better than me. I never said I was better, I snapped, chest heaving. I just want you gone. Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button, so you never miss a story like this, and also comments where you are watching from. Thanks. The pan crashed to the floor as he lunged forward. I twisted out of his reach, breath caught in my throat, and felt the cold steel of the stove press against my back. It wasn't the first time Clint got violent. But it felt different this time. There was something in his eyes I hadn't seen before, the look of a man with nothing left to lose. He grabbed a glass off the counter and hurled it against the wall, where it shattered beside the framed picture from our wedding. The one I hadn't had the courage to take down yet. You think anyone else would want a broken woman like you? He spat. You think the sheriff's gonna come running when you whimper? Ain't nobody coming, Ellie. You got no one. I don't remember picking up the knife. I just remember the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. My own voice trembling as I screamed, "Get out," and the flash of movement as he came at me again. Everything after that was a blur, a thud, a gasp, maybe mine, maybe his. Then silence. Cold, choking silence. I walked into the sheriff's office barefoot. My dress was soaked in blood. Not all of it was mine. My hand shook, even as I tried to grip the counter. The receptionist stood so fast her chair tipped over behind her, and in her wide, horrified eyes, I saw what I must have looked like. I don't remember what happened, I whispered. Please. I need help. Sheriff Nolan appeared from the back like a storm. Boots heavy. Eyes narrow. He'd known Clint since they were boys. Hell, we all went to the same church once. He looked at me like he didn't know whether to draw his weapon or wrap me in a blanket. Ellie, he said, his voice low. You all right? I don't know, I said, nearly choking. I think he's dead. That's when everything snapped into motion. Radios clicked on. Deputies moved fast. And me? I just stood there, my hands sticky with dried blood, my head a thundercloud of screams and silence. The last thing I remember was a deputy guiding me gently into the back room, telling me to sit, offering water I couldn't hold. But none of them knew what I knew deep down. This wasn't just a fight that got out of hand. Something had been building for years, and the explosion came the night the past finally caught up with Clint McAllister. They say memory protects you from trauma. I say memory chooses what to protect, and what to bury like a body 6 feet under. Because while I didn't remember what happened between that knife and the front door, I felt it. The terror. The rage. The betrayal that had finally gone too far. And then came the questions. Not from the sheriff. But from myself. What if he was right? What if no one believed me? What if they found out what I'd hidden, the truth about my husband, and what he'd done before he ever laid a hand on me? Because Clint's violence didn't start that night. It started long before the bruises. Before the lies. Before the night I found the picture, the one hidden behind the loose floorboard in the shed. A picture that didn't belong to us. A picture of a woman missing for 6 years. And Clint standing behind her, smiling. I should have told someone when I first saw it. I should have run. But I didn't. Because like too many women in towns like ours, I thought staying quiet was safer than speaking up. I thought I could be smarter. Hide it. Survive it. Maybe even fix him. But you can't fix a monster. Especially one who's been wearing a man's skin so well, for so long, that even the sheriff didn't see what he really was. I sat in that station for 3 hours. And when they brought me back into the room, blood tested, photos taken, questions circling like buzzards. Sheriff Nolan looked me in the eye and said, "Ellie, we found something." That's when the world flipped again. Because Clint's body wasn't alone. There was another one. Buried under the porch. Wrapped in plastic. The one I never knew existed. Or maybe, didn't remember. And with that, everything I thought I knew about myself, and my marriage, turned to smoke. What if I didn't just survive Clint? What if I ended something that had started long before I knew him? What if this wasn't just a domestic fight? What if I walked out of that house wearing a bloody dress, not because I killed my husband, but because I stopped a killer? The only problem? I didn't know which side of that line I was standing on. And time was running out to remember. Because someone else knew the truth. And they weren't about to let me live long enough to tell it. They say you don't remember trauma clearly, but that's a lie. You remember it in flashes. In smells. In cold, sharp feelings you can't name. So when Sheriff Nolan shut that door behind him and sat across from me, I didn't just feel scared. I felt like I was 8 years old again, like I'd snuck into Daddy's study and found something I was never meant to see. His voice was quiet. Almost kind. But I knew better than to trust kindness when it came with a clipboard. "Ellie, there's no easy way to say this," he began. "There's another body. Found it in a plastic tarp under your porch. Been there a while. Dental records say her name was Rita Ellis." The name hit me like a slap. Rita. That name had vanished years ago, from town gossip, from missing posters, from every conversation that made people shift uncomfortably. But I never connected her to Clint. Why would I? She disappeared before I even met him. Before I moved back from Nashville, before the miscarriage, before all of it. "I didn't know," I said, and my voice cracked like glass. "I swear to God, Nolan. I didn't know about her." He studied me. Not like a cop. Like a man trying to decide whether he was staring at a widow, or a woman running out of stories to tell. "I believe you," he said finally. "But there's more." And he slid the photo across the table. It wasn't a crime scene photo. Not yet. It was a Polaroid, aged and curled. Taken in a kitchen I didn't recognize. In the center was Clint, younger, clean-shaven, back when he could still fake charm. His arm was around a woman. Blonde, small, smiling like she had no idea her life was about to be taken from her. Rita. And in the blurry corner of that photo, just a sliver of reflection caught in the chrome fridge, was someone else. Me. Or at least, it looked like me. Hair tied back. Same cheekbones. Wearing a dress I hadn't owned in years. I froze. "I don't remember this," I whispered. Sheriff Nolan leaned forward. "Ellie, I need you to think carefully. Did you know Rita?" I don't know. Maybe in passing. Maybe from church. But this? This picture, Nolan, I swear I don't remember it." He didn't look convinced. And honestly, neither was I. Because what scared me more than the photo was the feeling it stirred in me. Not guilt. Recognition. Like my mind was trying to unlock something I'd buried so deep, it got lost in the dark. They kept me in the station that night. Not in a cell, not yet, but under watch. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I kept turning that photo over in my head, tracing the lines of that woman's face. My own. Wondering if I was losing my mind, or if it had been lost a long time ago. What if Clint didn't just hurt women? What if he made them disappear? What if I saw something back then, and forgot? Or worse, helped? No. No, that couldn't be. I'm not a killer. I'm not. But what if I'd been manipulated? Gaslit for years? Controlled so deeply that entire years of my memory weren't real? I thought of the night he first hit me, how he cried after, blamed stress, said it'd never happen again. I thought of the way he isolated me, made me quit my job, told me the world was too dangerous for someone as fragile as me. I thought of the pills he insisted I take, the ones that made me foggy, slow. He didn't just break me. He rewired me. And maybe, somewhere in all that fog, was a truth too horrible to face. Around 4 a.m., Nolan returned. His face was pale. Tired. And when he spoke, his voice had none of the softness from earlier. "Ellie, we got the coroner's early report. Rita was pregnant when she died." I felt my breath leave me. Pregnant. Like I was, once. Like I had been, when I lost the baby and Clint didn't even take me to the hospital. Said it wasn't a real loss. And then Nolan said something that made the floor drop beneath me. "We think Clint might have been the father." I covered my mouth as I shook my head. Not just in disbelief, but in horror. Horror at what that meant. What that could have meant. "You think he killed her because of the baby?" I whispered. "I think he killed her because she threatened the life he wanted," Nolan said. "And Ellie? I think he was doing it again. To you." I wanted to scream. But there was no voice left in me. Because deep in my bones, I knew it was true. Clint hadn't just abused me. He hunted women like me. Used us. Controlled us. And when we stopped serving his story, he erased us. One by one. And now, maybe for the first time, I understood why I survived. Because the past was waking up. And someone wanted to make sure I never remembered it fully. I didn't ask to remember. Memories have a way of crawling back in when you're weakest, like rats finding cracks in the walls. And that morning, when they let me shower in the back room and handed me a change of clothes, I caught my reflection in the mirror, and something shifted. The cut on my forehead. The blood under my fingernails. The ache in my ribs I hadn't noticed before. It wasn't just from the night Clint died. It was older. Familiar. Like my body remembered a war I'd long stopped fighting. And when I closed my eyes, it came rushing back, all at once. I was standing in our kitchen. Clint was shouting again. Not screaming, no, Clint was too proud for that. He raised his voice like a sermon. Accusing, not angry. Calculated. I'd spilled something. Or left a light on. Or didn't fold the towels right. Something small. It always started small. But this time, there was someone else in the house. A woman. She stood at the doorway. Arms crossed, dark circles under her eyes, holding her purse like she was ready to run. Rita. I remember now. She came to warn me. I'd seen her once at church. She waited until Clint left for work, then knocked on my door like she was afraid it might explode. She said she needed to tell me something important. But I didn't want to hear it. I was already surviving one version of Clint. I didn't want to know how much worse he'd been before me. But that day, he came back early. And found her there. They argued. God, they argued like wolves. Clint shoved her into the wall. I tried to pull him off. He threw me back, hard. I hit my head. Blood, warm and thick, ran into my eye. Rita screamed. Said she was going to the police. Said she had proof. That's when he grabbed the hammer. I saw it this time. I heard it. Over and over, like a drumbeat in hell. And I didn't stop him. I didn't move. Because I was too dizzy, or too scared, or maybe something deeper. Maybe I was already too broken to know what saving someone looked like. When she hit the floor, something in Clint changed. He looked at me like I was just another broken tool. You saw nothing, he said. You fell. You hit your head. That's it. I nodded. Like a good little puppet. He cleaned the mess. Wrapped her up. Dragged her out. Said if I ever told anyone, he'd finish what he started. And I believed him. Because part of me died that night too. Not just from the fear. From the shame. Back in the sheriff's office, I stared at the bloodstained dress folded in a paper bag beside me. That's why I couldn't remember. Because the only way to survive was to erase it. The dress wasn't just from Clint's murder. It was from hers. I wore it both nights. I was wearing it when he killed Rita, and again when he came for me, all these years later. It was like the past never really let go. Like it waited, patient, coiled around my throat, counting the days until I'd open my eyes and see the truth. That I wasn't just a victim. I was a witness. And maybe now, I had one last chance to set it all right. Even if it meant burning everything down. Even if it meant the world never looked at me the same again. Because justice isn't about feeling safe. It's about standing in the wreckage, broken and bare, and still telling the truth, even if your voice shakes. Especially if it shakes. Because the truth was, Clint didn't just kill Rita. He erased her life. Her voice. Her future. And now that I remembered, I'd make sure the world never forgot her again. The town was smaller than I remembered, or maybe I was just seeing it clearly for the first time. Every face looked familiar, but twisted now, not by time, but by truth. The pastor who told me to honor thy husband. The neighbor who closed her blinds when she heard Clint yelling. The deputy who said, "Are you sure it's that bad?" when I came to him with a bruised wrist and tear-streaked eyes years ago. They all saw something. But no one did anything. And now? Now they'd have to listen. I walked straight into the town hall. Sheriff Merton was already there, along with 3 city officials and that same smug deputy who used to smirk when Clint called me scatterbrained in front of him. I held Rita's file in one hand, police reports she tried to file, photographs, letters she'd written me but never sent. All of it wrapped in time like a message from the grave. "Is this a confession?" the sheriff asked. "No," I said. "It's a revelation." He laughed. Laughed like I was still the weak woman in Clint's shadow. Like I was just another fragile widow, unraveling at the seams. But I wasn't unraveling. I was uncovering. "You remember Rita Grayson?" I said. "You should." She reported Clint 3 times. "You dismissed her every time." His face tightened, but he said nothing. "She came to my house the night before she disappeared. Clint killed her in my kitchen. With a hammer." "You have proof of that?" he snapped. I held up the letters, the police report stamped with his own initials, the one Clint somehow made disappear. "She told me everything. And now I remember everything." The room went quiet. Because deep down, they already knew. They just didn't want it traced back to them. Your department failed her. Your silence cost a woman her life. And it almost cost me mine. You're grieving. You're confused, the deputy muttered, shifting in his seat. "No," I said. "I'm finally awake." And the moment I said it, something broke in the air, that quiet lie everyone had been clinging to, pretending Clint was just a troubled man, not a monster they let walk free for years. I slammed the dress down on the table, bloodstained, torn, soaked with the weight of 2 lives lost. One buried in the woods. One buried inside me. Sheriff Merton stood, angry now. "This doesn't prove murder. You don't have a body." "I do," I said, voice shaking. "Or what's left of her." Because once I remembered, I went back. To the edge of the forest. Where Clint had dragged that tarp under moonlight years ago. The place he warned me never to go near, the one patch of trees where even the birds stopped singing. And I dug. With my own 2 hands. What I found wasn't whole. But it was enough. A bracelet. A tooth. Bone fragments Clint couldn't bury deep enough. She was still there. So I handed them the location. The evidence. And then I said the words I'd been choking on for years. "Do your job." Because I wasn't here for pity. I wasn't here to be coddled, or doubted, or sent back home to cry in silence. I was here to shatter the lie. To bury Clint not in secret, but in truth. To remind every coward in that town hall that silence makes you guilty too. And to give Rita the justice she was denied the moment she knocked on my door, and I didn't open it fast enough. They found her. 2 days after I handed them the coordinates, they sent a crew into the woods. Quiet. No press. No cameras. Just a forensics team and 3 men who could barely look me in the eye anymore. Rita's body had been there all along. Not far from the creek. Buried beneath a rotting mattress and 3 feet of packed earth. Clint had used cement blocks from our old shed to weigh her down, like she was just another chore on his list. Like her life didn't matter. But it did. And now the world would finally know it. The sheriff didn't speak to me after that. Not directly. He held a press conference instead. Wore his nicest hat. Said the department regretted the oversight. Called it a decades-old cold case. Made no mention of the fact that Rita had begged for protection. Or that I had walked in covered in blood and memory, begging to be believed. No. They couldn't give me that. But they couldn't stop the truth anymore either. The bones were real. The dress was real. The letters. The bruises. The missing woman. It was all real. And now so was the reckoning. Clint's name was dragged through every headline. Ex-cop. Decorated war veteran. Church deacon. Murderer. Turns out Rita wasn't the first woman he hurt. Just the first to disappear. For others came forward in the weeks that followed. Former girlfriends. One ex-fiancé. Even a cousin. All with stories. All with bruises. All with fear. It had taken one woman covered in blood to give the rest permission to speak. And suddenly the man this town once called a pillar of strength looked more like the monster I'd known in silence. And they couldn't bury him with honor anymore. They exhumed his grave. Stripped the flag from his coffin. Removed his name from the precinct's memorial wall. One by one, the plaques came down. Quietly. Without ceremony. But I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for release. And I got it the day they put Rita's name on her own gravestone. No longer missing. No longer forgotten. Just seen. I visited her with a bouquet of wildflowers and a tear-stained apology. Not because I killed her, but because I didn't stop him. Because I had survived. And she hadn't. People treated me differently after that. Not like a victim. Not even like a hero. Mostly like a warning. The men who used to call me Sweet Ellie wouldn't make eye contact now. The women at church whispered when I walked in, clutching their pearls like the truth might infect them. But I didn't care. I stood. I screamed when no one else would. I dragged a ghost into daylight and made the town face it. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel his. I felt mine. So if you're listening, and you're scared, and you're bruised and tired and the world is telling you to just hang in there. Don't. Don't hang in. Don't wait. Don't bleed quietly in the shadows while the world praises your abuser. Scream. Kick. Fight. Even if it takes years. Even if they don't believe you at first. Even if you forget your own name from the trauma. Because the truth waits. And when you're ready, it will walk you straight into the light, no matter how bloody the dress.